All right, well, I think we will get started here and I'll let guests in as they arrive. But this morning we wanted to welcome you to our webinar, Paid Family Medical Leave and the Employee Role. My name is Carolyn. I am with Midwest Manufacturers, and we are delighted today to have Ron Dietl with Employee Benefits Plus from Becker join us to share with us these important changes in the Minnesota law. So I'm going to hand everything over to you, Ron, and it's all yours.
Thank you, Carolyn. Yes, and I want to thank also starting out Kathy Zenzen and Les Engel from Engel Metallurgical. They're the reason I'm here. They're clients of mine, and we were recently talking about the employer's role with paid family medical leave, the new law coming into place January 1st. And they had suggested that there's probably some employers in the MMA area and associate employers that may not be real familiar with how this works and what their role is, and also what other private plans may be available to them. So that's what brought me here today. So I want to thank them. And also, as there are questions that do come up, if you would please enter those in the chat, if it's maybe something that is you think might be coming down the line or that I maybe didn't address. But also, it's okay to jump in if you have questions specifically on the slide that we have. I do have 37 slide decks. I'm not quite sure how this will go, how quick it'll go. I'll be a little more thorough than others on it because there's some highlights, especially when it comes to, like I said, employer's role, how private plans work, and those type of things. So I will just start. And then this is full disclosure, I did steal some of this. This is from the Minnesota deed overview and that they used on July 28th. So I did take some of the slides from here, but also I added a few things that I felt were pertinent and have developed since July 28th, because this is still a developing law as there has been some changes. So I'm just gonna, there we go. So what we're going to touch on today is there are 4 steps to the preparing for the paid family medical leave. I'm going to touch on 2 to 3 of them specifically, just for time wise, and also just to keep everything in perspective, because we will be having a second webinar in 2 weeks on the 24th. So I will highlight highlight that 4th step on the administration of the leave. But more importantly, just how does this work and what's the employer's role in is what we're going to cover today, like I mentioned. And so on the step 1, getting to know the basics of the program. When would my employers need paid leave? So we're going to touch on that. Who's covered under the law and what benefits and job protections are under the law. And so real quickly, so this is going to be starting January 1st. It was put into law on May 23rd and then also updated on the 24th of 2024. And what it does, the law provides job protections and payments from the state to individuals who need time off to care for themselves or loved ones. And we're going to touch on that a little bit more. And how are the premiums funded? And also, and the benefits then are directly sent to any Minnesotans on leave, whether it be through a private plan or through the state. And so what is the covered leave? So the first one, some employers may be familiar with short-term disability. The medical leave is for someone to care for themselves. They get up to 12 weeks per year for an injury or illness to take care of their own serious condition. But the extension of this paid family medical leave plan is the family leave, which also can be paid from 1 to 12 weeks for bonding time for the first 12 months of a child's birth or after placement of adoption or foster care, for active duty, caring for a family member with a serious health condition, and also safety because of domestic abuse, sexual assault, or stalking of the individual or individual's family member. So you have 12 weeks, up to 12 weeks medical leave, up to 12 weeks family leave, and you notice the purple on the bottom, it says a maximum of 20 weeks is combined. So this is an extension from disability, which protects only injury or sickness, your income because of those. And then they also included the family leave as well. So you get 20 weeks combined between both the medical and the family leave. So the qualifying conditions must last more than 7 days and be certified by a health provider or designated professional, which does include, sorry, lost my train of thought. I was just wanting to make sure I covered something there. So what happens is after the 7 days, the employee will submit a claim form with disability. It would be either through the state or through the private plan. And then that first 7 days that they're missing once they're missing 8 days, they will get paid for they will get back pay for the 7 days that they missed prior to that. And these are the employees that are covered. So in the state of Minnesota, most people are going to be covered. There's going to be some that are not covered but can opt in, and then also those that are not covered and can't opt in. Those I'm going to direct more questions. That the state does respond very quickly to some questions. So if anybody has any employees, they're concerned maybe in the not covered can't opt in, or in the purple area where they're not covered and can opt in. I'm going to direct those. I can assist as much as I can on those, but I'm going to direct those mostly to the state. There's a state question site under the Minnesota paid leave um, that can assist with those. And then it's also going to show as far as who is covered by this plan in the state of Minnesota. So it's any employees who work more than 50% or more in the prior year in Minnesota. Doesn't matter where they live, but if they're working in Minnesota. And then also for employees who did not work more than 50% or more in the state, but who live in Minnesota. So those that are going to be covered under the plan. Paid leave. So how does the payment work for the employees? And so the paid leave focuses on what matters so they can protect their child recovering from an illness or supporting loved ones. Minnesota's can get up to 90% of usual wages. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to skip over that for just 1 minute. I'm going to go to the next slide, which actually shows a percentage of what's covered based on Minnesota's wages. And then one thing I will touch on the last point here, it says you must have earned at least 5.33 of the state average annual wage in the past year to be eligible. So you have to make more than $3,900 in 2025 to be eligible. So I'm gonna enlarge this just a little bit so we can see an estimated calculator of these benefits. And this is going to be, so what I did, I highlighted the different increments of how an employee is paid. So this, I know we will be sending this out in a YouTube video, but I'm going to touch on the bottom. So apologize for those that are like me that maybe have bad eyesight, but I wanted to make it just a little smaller so you can see the bottom part of the screen where it shows the different steps of how people are paid. So the average weekly wage on the right-hand side in the state of Minnesota is $1,423. I'm going to slide up just a little bit so everybody can see that. And you know what? I apologize. I'll go through the spreadsheet first that I have up there. So I did an increment of every $5,000 for the state annual wage, for somebody's annual wage. And then I broke it down per week because that's what we're talking about. Benefits for the employees is per week. That's their income earned for the week. And then the estimated weekly benefit that they would receive from the state because they're out for a family or medical leave. And then what percentage of their income is replaced based on after the estimated weekly benefit is paid. And then the state average weekly wage, like we talked about, that we're going off of is 1423. If you go on the Minnesota Deed website, you will see sometimes an old number of $1,372. That has been changed. It has been increased slightly through the legislature in the last couple months. So 1423 is what we're going to be using for a number for 2026 on the state average weekly wage. Now, how does this work? So when an employee leaves, The average weekly wage, so they get 90% of their income if they make less than 50% of the state average weekly wage. So if they make less than $686 a week, they will receive 90% of their income. Okay. So everybody who will make around, and I say 36,000, that's a round number. So I apologize there, but just to make the numbers a little easier um, and the slide to work a little more easier, then those that are going to be making between 50% and 100% of the state average weekly wage, they will receive an additional dollar amount. So they receive 66% of their wages after their 90% has been paid. So everybody gets paid, so 36,000 or the $36,000 and under, everybody gets that 90%. What's remaining of their average weekly wage, they get 66% of. So let's say somebody is making $60,000, for example. They will get paid, we'll use the 36,000 example. They get 90% of the $36,000. And then the difference, which is $24,000, they will receive an additional 66% of their wages. Okay. Then we go up to the orange. So after about $71,000 a year is where the state average weekly wage is 100% is met. So once you hit 71,000 or more, that is 100% of your state average weekly wage. So you would receive 55%, an additional 55% after you've been paid your 90% for the first 36,000, your additional 66% up to 71,000. And if you're making, for example, $90,000, that'd be an additional $19,000 you would receive of an additional 55% of the income. Once you receive, once an employee is making $100,000 or more per year, they will max out. You'll notice that's what the blue is for. You'll notice in the third column and the last column, they equal what their state average weekly wage is, which is $14.23, and you cannot exceed that um, through the state benefit. And then you'll notice that fourth column, it just kind of shows as you go up the percentage of their wage that is covered. And we're going to talk about how employees can better protect those in the next couple slides as well. Okay. Any questions on what I just covered there? Because that's a lot. Okay. Next thing we'll talk about is paid leave job protection. So job protection leave improves employee retention as employees can take time as they need to bond with family while having to care between their families and their jobs. The employees must be restored to the same position or equivalent position, not changing status of pay, benefits, or length of service or seniority during that leave. And the job protection begins 90 days from the date of hire. Okay. And the other thing I wanted to talk about, so this is a question that came up when Les and Kathy and I were talking, is how does health insurance work in this case? So I actually had one of my contacts email their contact with Indeed, and I gave that specific because they've been very helpful with this, and they actually, so here's the answer, is that during any leave for which an employee is entitled to benefits or leave, the employer must maintain coverage under the group insurance policy or healthcare plan for the employee and any dependents as if the employee was not on leave. So for example, if somebody is paying, for example, 100% of the employee's health insurance premium, and let's say 50% of the dependents, and then they are on leave, that must continue. So during the employee leave, it'd be up to the employer to determine how those funds would be deducted. So for example, if there are some dependents on that health insurance plan and that 50 percentile is responsible by the employees, they would determine how they can how the employee can pay that and what the payment plan would look like. So that was a question that came up, and that's a good question because sometimes that's a question, even without the paid family medical leave, how is health insurance covered by employers? And it's kind of up to the employer. At this point, I do want to touch on one thing that I was thinking about when this question came up about the health insurance and other benefits is this is a great opportunity because there's going to be a lot of things we'll need to do in the next few months. One of those things is definitely we want to look at those employee handbooks and how we have benefits set up. I think just to make sure that everything's crystal clear, there's no questions because there is communication that does need to happen um, before December 1st with all the employees on this paid family medical leave, how that works, and we're going to touch on that. But part of that could be also if there's any employer policies that may change with this as well. Now, when it comes to the um, state website, so the new paid family medical leave is going to be an arm and using a lot of the system from the unemployment insurance on the state. So that's where a lot of the setup is already used already, but you do need to log in to set up as an administrator for that. And so this is going to be contributions if you're going to be using the state for the paid family medical leave. And how this will work is they're going to collect the tax starting January 2026. That's when the first premiums are due when you report your quarterly wage tax, just like you typically do for unemployment. So when you go in, you want to you want to set up your paid leave administrator account. And these are all information, again, that's on the D website as well. And you want to designate a paid leave administrator. So that person's going to get communications. And the other thing that they have, because I'm an employer as well, you do get updates at least once a month now, sometimes twice a month as there's changes or just talking about the paid family medical leave system as becomes closer to fruition. Now, preparing your work site. So decide how to split premiums. So premiums can be shared between the employers and the employees. So if an employer decides not to use a private plan, simply go through the state plan and they have more than 30 employees, their rate will be a 0.88% of their salaries. So that covers both family and the medical leave. Okay. Those first premiums are due, like it says, December 30th, and that's again when you file your quarterly first quarter payroll taxes. So starting January 1, employers can deduct up to 50% of the premiums for employee paychecks. Now that 50% deducted from the employees is 50% of the 0.88, regardless of what the employer gets. That's the most that the employer can put on the employee. And the employers may choose to pay for some or all of the employees' portion. Again, that's a conversation you can share with the education on prior to December 1st when when your education for the employees comes up. So smaller employers will pay a reduced premium. Okay. They're gonna be reduced by 25% if they have 30 or fewer employees. And the reason they do that, I'm going to go to the next slide. Sorry, I thought I had that in there. And what that is for, that the discount for the 30 and under employees, because the state feels they may be hurt the greatest by this leave, is that allows the tax that they're saving to either hire an additional employee or pay other employees additional wages to help with that gap and also help with training of any new employees they may need to bring on board to fill that gap during the leave for that employee. So this just shows how you're going to provide paid leave for your employees as your employer. This is just a Minnesota site where they're encouraging the employers to go through the state It's the least expensive and easiest option to help with that. And also they're going to assist with claim payments and other questions there. And then they're also going to have if you choose an equivalent plan, paid leave built a straightforward, user-friendly process to submit your request. So what they're stating on there, if you do have, we'll touch on that in the next slides coming up, it shows you how to go through that process if you do choose a private plan. And this will just reiterate a little bit more what we talked about when it comes to the Minnesota paid leave or an equivalent plan or a private plan. And it talks about where employers cannot charge the employees more than the 0.44 wages of 2026 to fund an equivalent plan. So this next slide that I'm going to share with you is a company that I've been using that has very competitive rates. They've been going, so they're what they call a monopoint or monoline insurance company. All they do is they work with employers who are looking for private plans as an alternative to any state paid family medical leave program. They're based in New Jersey. They are in 12 other states. Minnesota will be the 13th. So they have a lot of experience with this. And the other thing is that when it comes to experience, I was on a webinar a couple of weeks ago. They handle 6,000 claims a month. And unfortunately, a lot of those, I shouldn't say a lot, some of those claim forms, like when somebody has to go through, if they filed a claim through the state of Minnesota, they're just not filled out correctly. So you have to go through and you have to redo it. So the challenge is there, who's going to assist with that? So if you do have an insurance agent that represents a company like this, you have that assistance like you would, like, for example, a Blue Cross plan. Let's say there's an issue with a health insurance claim, and instead of you going directly to Blue Cross, you have a middle person or that agent, and that's what Shelter Point would be used as well. So with Shelter Point, that's one of there's several other companies out there that do work that do offer this plan, but with Shelter Point, like I mentioned, there's no other lines of insurance they sell other than private insurance plans for employers. So how does the quoting process work? And this is just a guide that I printed off. And if there's any smaller employers that are on the line that have less than 24 employees with 60% or less female in their census, and they're not in one of the four industries, so transportation, healthcare, social services, or auto dealer industries, they can skip filling out a census application, and they can sending out a census to get a quote. They can automatically send in an application, and they're guaranteed a rate of 0.59%. That 0.59%, now if you're under 30 employees, remember, in the state of Minnesota, you get to apply for that grant, which gets you down to 0.66. Okay, we talked about that 25% grant. I think the 0.66 came up, and I apologize if it didn't. So this will get you an additional 0.07% savings. And if you have several employees, and again, it's all based off your salaries. So this may come out as an opportunity to get a reduced rate, as well as have a private company handle your claims and administration for the family medical leave going forward. If you have more than 25 employees, then we do have there's a census that I use with my clients. I have them fill that out. We send it in. It's a very simple census. And you'll notice on what you'll need, there's 4 bullet points that's used. And we send that in, and then we're able to get a rate back and review if it makes sense for the employer to go through a state plan or go through a private plan. And this is just the back page of that, just kind of touches on what Shelter Point or any other private company can do for you and why to go that route. But I think what's more important is if you are approved, so what will happen is when you get a quote and you do decide to that you would like to apply, there's an application process that you'll send in to, for example, this is one example, like Shelter Point, and you will get a policy number back. That is very important because what happens is you'll notice on the 3 steps for employees to submit equivalent plan applications, and it's going to be on 2 pages. I apologize. So you'll notice on step number 1, well, first off, you have to go to the Minnesota unemployment website and then read through the requirements. And then on the next page, oh, sorry. You need to select family and medical leave or purchase an insurance carrier. Okay. So when you enter the private plan, you need to put in your effective date, carrier name. So it lists all how that all works, as well as the policy number. That's the important thing. And then also the requirement certification, as well as upload the plan documents. So you need to upload the Shelter Point life insurance policy, so you can verify that you do have an equivalent plan. Now, upon this, there is a fee that all employers will need to pay for a submission for a private plan. So we'll just skip down to the second bullet point there in step number 3. So for any employers fewer than 50, there's a $250 fee. Now that fee is paid for this year. It has not been put into law yet that it's annual, but I've talked to some people where that probably will be the process every year. So like renewing your health insurance, you would have to submit this you would submit this private plan every year. And right now there's not in the law that there will be a fee, but that could be coming up in legislation for 2026. So those employers for 50 to 499, it's a $500 fee, and then $1,000 for those with 500 or more employees. And this is where you really have to look at, depending on the size of your business, the volume or the annual salary, does it make sense to, let's say, for example, you're going to save using the private plan versus going through the state. I had an employer I just went over this with last night. Their volume is a little smaller, meaning their annual salary. They're going to save $178 going through a private plan over the state plan, but they're going to have to pay $250. So they would have to choose, do they want a private insurance and pay an extra $80 above and beyond the tax, or would they rather go through the state plan? So those are conversations I have with my clients, but many of those they are able to save some money. Where even, let's say for example, they'll save $400 for the year on taxes, but they have to submit the $250 fee. They're still saving $150, and they have the peace of mind that they have a private insurance company handling their claims versus going through the state option if that is their wish. Okay. And here's what I thought I had this slide earlier. I apologize. So starting in 2026, here it talks about the opportunity for small businesses under 30 to apply for a reduced tax rate through the state. And what does that funding do? It allows them to hire up to $3,000 to hire temporary workers, increase pay, and train workers to cover employees' leave. I think I covered all those earlier. Updated your workplace, and we kind of talked about this a little bit. Notification requirements that'll be coming out, and I have a copy of that, what that will look like. Attendance, you need to also think about intermittent leave policies, and we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. And how does this coordinate with other payments and coordinate with other leaves? So the notification requirement has to poster is in English, and if any other employers that have a language spoken by 5 or more employees or independent contractors, you need to have a poster in that language as well. You need to notify employees directly 30 days of hire or before December 1st, like we had talked about there, and that's a copy of what this paid leave will look like. and I do know with the private carriers, with the clients that I've helped, this form actually does come with their kit that they receive. So it comes in a PDF, and so they already have this, and they're aware of what they need to post by December 1st. And here it talks about how soon the employees need to know. I'm sorry, employees need to notify their employer within at least 30 days before their leave begins. Now, in the event of an injury and sometimes a serious illness, that's not possible to be realistic there. However, there are needed to give notice as soon as possible, and that may even be the same day or the day after. But if there's some scheduled, let's say somebody has a scheduled surgery or something like that, or an adoption, those would need to be, if able, at least 30 days before the leave begins or as soon as possible. So this is a decision the employer would need to make, is how will they administer intermittent leave? Um, they can either choose continuous leave is taken in a block of time, and intermittent leave is taken in smaller blocks of time. For example, a couple days or hours over a couple months. And so for intermittent leave, employers they can set a minimum increment of time. So you can choose how you like to do that. And if employees can take more than 480 hours of intermittent leave in a single benefit year. Oh, sorry, I went the wrong way. Okay. So now we're going to talk about coordination of other payment benefits. So some benefits can be used with paid leave to bring their payments closer to the worker's regular salary. Think of it like a topping off paid leave payments for like sick time, vacation pay, paid time off, as well as short-term disability. And this just gives an example for those employers that are familiar with how short-term disability works, or any type of other supplemental payment or substitution payment. You'll notice the normal pay where it just kind of fills in the gap. And I think it's important, myself as an agent, that selling disability, it's important to have those conversations with the employer as well as the employees to let them know how their benefits work and how they will work in place of or in addition to the new paid family medical leave. And it is correct. We want to be able to top off, not exceed benefits, right? And that's where those conversations are so important, those educational, especially one-to-one, and especially this year. So coordination with other job protections, I want to also include this slide. And we talked about paid leave already, right? With the up to 12 weeks of family medical leave as well as PPL. Um, the other leaves the employers already have taken leave for a reason that qualifies under the paid leave. Once the program starts, then the amount of paid leave the employee can take may be reduced. So if they choose other options in addition um, to the paid family medical leave. And one thing I wanted to touch on, and this is something I pulled off of the website, and that's important to know as well. So for birth and bonding, I'm going to increase that just a little bit more. So for adoption, foster care, and newborn child, the leave, you have up to 12 months to take that leave coming into 2026. So it gives an example. If a child arrives on June 1st of 2025, the employee can take their bonding leave um, prior to June 1st, 2026, and they get up to 12 weeks. So anytime after January 1st, they're eligible to take that 12 weeks because the child arrived within 12 months of the paid family medical leave starting. And they also have an example of how it works for childbirth. If a child arrives on March 1st, 2025, bonding leave must be taken by March 1st, which means the parents are eligible for up to 8 weeks. So it'll be from January 1, 2026 up to March 1, 2026. And again, it shows an example of an employee who qualifies for the Family Medical Leave Act and applies for paid leave 2 weeks after their leave begins. So they have the example on the bottom where, let's say the employee decides they want to use PTO for whatever reason. They have some, maybe it's towards the end of the year. They want to use their PTO. They can use that instead of receiving benefits, and then their benefits would start on week 3 versus week 1. So this is a QR code you can use to learn more about the state. One thing I've used for my clients as well in consulting about this, they have a great frequently asked question for the employers that's about 4 pages long. I know it sounds long, but it really does cover a lot of things. That's where I learned a lot of my information, especially since it finally, the one thing we were waiting for, and this took a little longer to anticipate, to get all the final laws going, and also to get that website available for private plans to be available, because we had a special session. They weren't able to resolve everything in the regular session this year. So we weren't expecting to have any information until the end of July, once everything was finalized. But luckily, because they started so soon, they were able to get it in the first couple weeks of June. We got our information a lot quicker. So I've been um, really feasting on this and learning as much as I can to help take care of my clients. And this is an opportunity for you to do that as well. You can use this QR code, or as well as the mnpaidleave.mn.gov on website on the bottom of that slide. So I guess that does it for me at this part, and I just wanted to share with you. So if you do have some more questions about this after today, you want to talk a little bit more specific, how things work, and sometimes complementing the paid family medical leave and other options there. This is just an education piece, but if you want to continue a conversation after today, I just want to put my information up there as well. And again, I want to thank Kathy and Les for inviting me to do this webinar. And Carolyn, at this point, is there any questions that came in the chat? It was kind of quiet on the presentation. I didn't hear a lot of questions that way, so I'm not sure if anybody was putting in information in while we were talking.
I haven't seen anything yet, but if anyone wants to turn on their microphones and ask questions, we can do that as well.
Ron, it's Kathy. I just wanted to clarify, and I know you said this in the meeting, but a really important date for everybody on the call is December 1st, correct?
Yes, that is when all the education meetings by employers to employees has to be completed.
Okay. And we also have to declare whether we're going private or state funded.
Yes, thank you, Kathy. Yes, I did skip over that part. So you have to have, for employers that are interested in a private plan, they will have to have that election in by November 1st. For
November.
employers. Yes.
Okay. The other thing that Ron clarified for our company is who gets to determine whether or not that employee gets to take that leave. It's not the employer, it's either the state, if you go with the state program, or the privately funded insurance company determines whether or not that employee gets the leave, correct?
That is correct. So those companies that have a disability plan in place already, or a work comp, is going to be similar to that, where you have to have a physician signing off on it and verifying the leave.
That's all I had.
Okay.
Anybody else? All right. Well, we are going to be running this webinar again on September 24th, and we'll decide if there's any additional webinars to add. If Ron sees a need here, we'll add some more. But I think we are finished for today. So I just want to thank you so much, Ron, for doing this. It's really great, valuable information to share with our members, and we appreciate it. And I will be sending the video out to everyone who registered. So if you wanted to rewatch it, it'll be available.
Looks like Michelle had a question.
She wrote, yep, thank you. All right, Michelle. All right, guys, thanks for joining us. And please check out the events page on our MMA website. And we'll have webinars every month now. So we'll hope to see you again soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.